We'll wait for 5 minutes, then we'll start. Let them join. Let them join.
I think Toshik, we are good to go now.
Okay. Uh, so we'll start. Uh, let's wait for 1 or 2 minutes. Then we'll start.
I think you are on mute, Toshik.
Is the screen now visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I will first introduce myself. I am Tausik Samudra, and I'm currently now a uh, third year student at Utkal University Bhubaneswar, pursuing integrated MCA. And currently now I'm exploring uh, many more fields in computer science. Like I'm interested in AI and ML, and will be exploring it soon. And also I've made some projects like a newsletter system and currently doing a blogging website. So that's it about me. Now you can introduce yourself, Adya.
Yeah, so hi everyone. I am Adya Singh, Gold Microsoft Launchment Ambassador, and I am also an awardee of Microsoft Most Valuable Professional for Windows Insider. And I'm currently in my final year.
Okay, so uh, before talking about the GitHub Actions stuff, we'll first dive into the terminologies about different terminologies. There are some terminologies like SDLC and GitHub, DevOps cycle and CI/CD, what are workflows, what are pipelines and stuff. We'll explore that. Then we'll go into what is GitHub and what's the difference between Git and GitHub. I think you should know that. If you don't, then I will explain that. Then I will talk about what is GitHub Actions and why GitHub Actions, why GitHub Actions are used, and then I will talk about something called YAML, which is used in GitHub Actions, and why YAML is used, why not JSON or XML is used, because they are two data serialization languages. Then I will show you some uh, a short crash course about 10 minutes or 5 minutes about YAML and show you that how is YAML syntax and how it's easier than JSON. Okay, because in JSON you can have curly braces and stuff. You can have the things covered in strings in double quotes. So it's in YAML. It's very much easier. Then I'll give some examples of GitHub Actions YAML files, workflow.yaml, those are called, or anything, any name you can give that. Then I will do some hands-on demo. Then, sorry, this is not edited here. You can see it is as Kahoot, but it's something quiz. Okay, we have done it in different website. Okay, so let's now talk about some terminologies. So, uh, some terminologies that will I will say about say this. You might know this all of those, but if you don't worry about that. And let's now see something called SDLC. We'll deep dive into those. I will say what they are doing, not how, because you can find that in Google, and you can. This is a introduction session, so you can find at Google later on. You can search those terms, that is SDLC, DevOps, and how they work, CI/CD, and internally how they are working. So you can search on that later on. So we'll discuss about SDLC, DevOps cycle, CI/CD, continuous integration slash continuous deployment, or you can say continuous development, then pipelines, workflows, then we'll deep dive into GitHub. So now SDLC. Let's say you are designing a software. Let's say you are designing something called a library management system. I'm giving a simple example. Let's say you are in a group and you are designing something on library management system. So what happens in library management system? There are students. There is a issue. There is a librarian who issues the book. There are staffs who borrow book, and students also borrow book. So you don't have to code that whole thing in the right way, because uh, it will be messy. Okay. Let's say you want to code something called uh, a addition function. That thing is different from this, because that thing, how to add something. Okay, int c is equal to a plus b or something like that. But this is much more complex. And softwares, as the modules grew, then the complexity also grew by them. Okay, so uh, there is something called SDLC, which are some processes. Okay, some methods in which you can build a software. Okay, so uh, these processes can have goals like risk management, cost management, time management, etc. But the ultimate goal is to deploy a successful software and maintain that, and manage that software. Have continuous feedback on that. You should have continuous integration and deployment and all those things. So software development life cycle, it's a cycle. Okay, so and everything here you can see it repeats. First, requirement analysis. This whole thing comes under planning. Then this whole thing, then it's designing, then coding, then testing, then deployment, and then maintenance. The maintenance means like if the software has some bugs, you have to fix that. Okay, so you have to go again to designing and coding part, or maybe you can plan that and then fix that and then deploy. Again, this goes on like that. So first of all, it comes to planning. Planning is something that, let's say, a client gave you a software. Sorry, let's say client advise, sorry, sorry, asked you to build a software. Let's say you are a software company, like let's say you are Atlassian software company or Microsoft maybe. Then some client told you to build a software on this library management system, let's say. Okay, so library management system can be anyone. It can be it can be done inside organization, or it can be spread like something called, you can say, e-library, like in IIT Kharagpur there is e-library, you can say. And that systems are complex. Okay, so you have to plan first. You have to gather what are the requirements of the customer, and your goal is to satisfy those requirements and of the customer and the stakeholders. Then you have to plan accordingly, like plan accordingly. And this whole thing is managed by something called project managers. And then you have something called uh, SRS is made, software requirement specification. Okay, how we'll do that? Whether we have uh, the project manager will decide about everything, which coding language we'll choose. Let's say if we choose C, then it will be much more it will much more expensive. So we'll choose something as Java, let's say. Okay, so we're now programming in Java, so it will be cost effective. And uh, time management, in how many days or in how many weeks will deliver to them the software, and some risk management also there. So we have to do all these things, and the project manager decides and discusses with uh, the folks, and they prepare use SRS thing, software requirement specification. Then we come to something called design. Design means like you have some design patterns. Okay, you might have known some design patterns like client server architecture or MVC, model view controller, and something like that, system designs. And you have to design that how will you define each module. Okay, so you have students and teachers, and then you have to issue the book. Okay, and to the students and teachers, they will borrow books from like the librarian, and in how much time they will return it, or if they don't, how much fine will you give them. If someone comes outside the organization, and how will behave to them. So these are something done in planning. Then these are something designed in those particular design architecture and design using design pattern and system design in design this design module. Okay, then implement means you have to code. Okay, that how your manager or something has instructed you. Then you have to test that thing. If something bug happens or something like that, you have to again do code and implement that. Then you have to deploy using something deployment tools like for Microsoft, it's Azure Web Apps, Azure Static Webs. There are lots of tools, Azure Deploy Webs, or Deploy Apps or something you can deploy. There are different terminologies for different cloud providers. Okay, you can deploy it on cloud or you can deploy it on your own server. Uh, uh, and in the design part, in the design part, you can also you can specify what the architecture of it, like would it be monolithic or would it be microservices. Okay, so that was something I was missing. Then when you come to deploy, you can have AWS, GCP, Azure, something called Docker. You might have heard about that. It is a container based thing. And something are there like you can also manage them using Kubernetes and whole stuff. Okay, then you have to maintain or uh, you have to manage that. And uh, if something went wrong, there should be a consumer feedback that, hey, I have built this application. How is it? Okay, the consumer or the customer will give feedback, or the stakeholder, anything. Okay, those who have requested you to build the application. Then this cycle repeats on. Okay, this is something called SDLC, software development life cycle. This whole thing. So there are different models, like you can say classical waterfall model is the first one. Then you can have uh, RAD, rapid action development, and iteration model, incremental model, agile model. Agile one is the used recently, and it's being used popularly because agile means to quickly adopt the changes and all. What about that? Then comes to classical waterfall model, because everything that is being derived, let's say that is being developed, let's say iterative model is something that goes repeats on that, like on each step you repeat the previous step. Like here it is requirement specification. If something goes wrong, then you go to feasibility study, or design you go to requirement analysis and feasibility study, like that. In incremental, something goes on like it's incremental. Okay, so in classical waterfall model, let's focus on classical waterfall model. There are different models. Spiral model is also there. And in classical waterfall model, there is something called feasibility study. So when you begin that application, let's say library management system, you say whether it's feasible or not. Can we develop that? Okay, we have to consider that one too. Can we have enough resources? Can we have enough? Can we have uh, enough what to call something like that? Can we have enough capital or something that we can put together and build that application? Or can we have enough workforce or something that we can build that application? Okay, so if that meets the criteria, or we have to even meet that criteria too, okay, by changing something or something else. Then we go on to requirement analysis and specification. What are the requirements of that particular client? And you have to analyze that, and you have to give some uh, them called SRS. Okay, so it's software requirement specification, that this is that, and that it's the report of that we have done something and will deliver in this much amount of time. Okay, so then something called design that I have discussed. Then we call something coding and unit testing, integration and system testing, then maintenance. This is called waterfall model, because you can see that this visibility, this is like a waterfall. Okay, you can see like waterfall like structure. So it's called waterfall model. It has many cons, it has many disadvantages, but still it's the primary one, and all the models um, are based on this. Like agile model is based on incremental and iterate. Sorry, agile model is based on, yes, incremental and iterative, and which are also based on these things. Okay, the terminology may be different, but the thing is the same. Okay, so let's move on something called DevOps cycle. Okay, because this doesn't give us what automation stuff and what tools are required. That these are much more traditional in the and in the back in the days, this classical waterfall model is used, but now it's not used. So this is the DevOps cycle. Okay, DevOps means something called it's the combination of a developer team and operation team. What developer team do is that they plan, they design, they code, and they test. Okay, so they do all the uh, they plan, they code, they build, and they test the whole stuff. But they know how to do the things. But operation team doesn't want that how the things are working. But it's there. The build is there. The let's say the release the build is there. Then we have to deploy that. We have to operate that. Then we have to again do we have to again give some feedback to the developer team. So the when the developer team does something, let's say I build some application. It goes over here, we code, we build, we test, then we contact the operation team to uh, deploy it or to check it or something like that. When we sorry check not check it, but to deploy it. So then it's released, then deploy, then operate, then monitor. Monitor means something like uh, checking the facts, checking the feedbacks of the application. How is it the feedback, and checking the deployment whether it's successfully deployed or not, and something like that. So it checks. It doesn't know about this build thing. Okay, but their build he doesn't know about that. But he just deploys the application. Then again, if something sorry, again if something wrong happens, he again reports it to the developer team. This cycle goes on. Okay, so there should be a high and there should be strong bond between those developers team and operation team, because uh, they have to work together, right? So there are lots of tools are used. You can see your Git is something we'll focus on later on. Okay, so Jira is a software, uh, Atlassian, and Eclipse is there, Apache is there, Maven, Gradle is there, something is there, testing is Selenium is there, and it goes something like this. And in here you can see it's by Microsoft Azure. Okay, so there is something called Azure board. Okay, if you know agile model, they give a specific time to the folks that you have to do this thing in this amount of time. Okay, so you have to do that. Then you have to build this using GitHub code spaces on GitHub repository and something GitHub packages and all whole stuff. Then it goes on like that. Okay, this thing is called continuous integration. This left side is called continuous integration. This is called continuous deployment, and this is continuous feedback. Okay, so we'll I will explain about that in later on. Okay, so this is a Teams, the platform that in which you are in now, and this is chatbot and all. This is Selenium, OSP, something for security and stuff. I think so. Yeah, security and stuff. So this is GitHub Actions. Okay, that we are talking about, and this cycle goes on like the SDLC and the whole. So GitHub Actions is a continuous integration and a continuous deployment tool. Okay, so many folks think that it can't manage all the things that are going here because they they have a misconception that it only lies here. Okay, no, it it can create pull requests, it can create issues, it can also comment on a pull request which we will do that on hands-on demo, and it will also deploy that, and it will also manage that. Okay, so these things are also almost same as the DevOps, sorry, SDLC, and in some cases you can see this code build and test thing may be different. There are more modules and stuff, but the thing is ultimately the same. Okay, and SDLC is almost same, but not so much. And let's now look into something called CI and CD, continuous integration and continuous deployment. This is something called a guy is there. He's a developer, and this I have the picture I faced from Nimbella. Okay, it's a serverless deployment tool, and you can deploy on it on Nimbella. Okay, so if you know GitHub, then you might have known about this commit thing. Okay, where you can commit means just save the file. Let's say you are working on a text editor or notepad, you can save the file, it's commit. Then you have to build that. Okay, then you have to test that whether the application is working or not, whether it has some bugs, or it gives any syntax error at almost yet. Okay, it has some bugs, or in some cases it's working or not. If test is failed, then again you have to work on that. This whole thing is called continuous integration. This whole thing, and this whole thing is called continuous deployment, or delivery, you can say anything. And if the test is passed, then it's deployed, and whenever it's deployed, it's the work of the operation team to manage that whole stuff. Okay, like we have talked about this. You have to deploy, then you have to operate, monitor, and then again give some continuous feedback like this. Okay, so it gives some feedback, and then you have to go something like this. So this is integration, and this is deployment. Then you can read about this, the continuous integration and stuff. It's provided on GitHub, and you can also check out GitHub. Okay, GitHub has some amazing videos also. GitHub has have some amazing guides also. You can check that out. Okay, just type DevOps GitHub. You can check that out. Okay, and yeah, you can check that out. Okay. CI means building code and automating tests, as I have mentioned here. Then CD means deploying code to production. Okay, and that this is the misconception. Okay, GitHub Action doesn't act as a bridge between CI and CD. It manages everything. Okay, it doesn't. Uh, it doesn't. Okay, sorry. It doesn't comes here. It can do everything. Okay, it can create a pull request too. Can create here pull request too. Therefore, it's called CI and CD tool. Okay, so this is about CI and CD, continuous integration and continuous deployment. Then look about workflows and pipelines. Pipelines, if you know Linux, okay, if you have studied about Linux a bit, then you have, might know a pipeline, the OR operator or something, the bar operator, okay, like that, shift and bar, I think so. Okay, so uh, pipeline means some input goes in. Okay, there is a pipeline, and some output goes out. Okay, the input is here. Something input goes in, then output goes out, and this output is the input of another element, or let's say data processing element or something like that. Then it processes something and gets an output. This is called pipelining. So we are calling this as CI/CD pipeline, because something goes over here. Okay, is the input to this. Then the input to this is output that you are showing in different websites. Okay, so sorry, you are viewing in different websites, and the input is something. Input to this is input it output as this. Okay, you can see whether the test has passed or test has failed, and you gave an input. Okay, so this is an output or this is an output. Okay, this output is passed as an input to this deployment, and let's say you deployed an application on Azure. Okay, so you see that output on clicking on the link, uh, or let's say Google. Okay, and the teams are working on. Okay, they are doing all the CI/CD stuff and all those. What is Google? Google is the end result. Okay, so Google is the end result, and what's the end results output? The end results output is CI. Okay, this whole thing, the test is passed. Yes, the test is passed. If the test hasn't passed, you can see the image of Google, like uh, or the search bar, anything else you can say. So that's something called a pipeline. Okay, so we are talking about pipelines. There are lots of pipelines: continuous feedback and continuous operation. Continuous feedbacks are something like, let's say, continuous testing. There is continuous testing, and continuous monitoring also comes in. Continuous testing means if some code is pushed, or if some code is committed, sorry, if some code is pushed, then test that out. Or continuous monitoring means like, let's say in the deployment, you have heard about blue green deployment strategy. Okay, so blue green is not, it's very simple. Okay, blue means that it's publicly accessible. Let's say Google has something called google.com, let's say, something that is publicly accessible. There's something inside that which they are working on. Let's say they're integrating the bard thing. Okay, you might have heard about the AI by Google. They are integrating some bard thing into the Chrome or something, or let's say Google search or something. Then they have the internal link. That's something called green deployment, uh, green deployment strategy, or blue or green deployment strategy. They are green in that, and blue is the publicly accessible. So you can think about that like that in the Microsoft Bing, let's say. But this thing is also not you are if you are thinking that um, whether updating my application it might stop. No, these all are managed by something called orchestrator. You might have heard about the Kubernetes and stuff. If you are updating an application, the you can view the old version of an application parallelly, because it's managed by all these orchestrator and stuff. Okay. So workflows are something that's triggered by some events. Okay. Something that is triggered by some events. Let's say let's in the GitHub action, I'm referencing to GitHub actions. Let's say you have pushed some code. Okay. Or you have raised an PR, let's say, pull request, and the workflow is something that is being triggered by that event. Event can be anything. Event can be creating a label also, creating a PR also, creating an issue also, anything. Okay, that's an event. Or it can apply to some branches. Let's say it's not mandatory that it will happen to only main branch. No, it can happen to any branch. So this workflow file is written in YAML. Okay, we'll discuss later on that. And you can manually trigger workflows too. Okay, you can manually trigger workflows by clicking on. We'll see that in hands-on demo. Okay, something called workflows, and we'll see that about the manually and the events stuff. We'll see that in hands-on demo, and something we'll see that on later on. Okay. So this is about something terminologies, and let's now talk about Git and GitHub. Okay, so don't think that Git and GitHub are same. As a general, you can think of Git is a layer built around the concept of Git. GitHub is a layer built around the concept of Git. Let's say uh, Git is something that you can think that uh, eh, you can think that about the earth surface. Let's say the outer layer is there, then mantle is there, then core is there. The core is surrounded, the GitHub is surrounded by this because Git is something single user. You can use as a you can if you if you ever set up Git, you can check about that it's single user. It accepts your username and your only email. But GitHub is something uh, that is that is not managed. It's something the multiple people are present there, multiple folks are present there. Okay, they collaborate with each other. Uh, the software developers collaborate with each other. Not only software developers, many people present that. Let's say computer science folks. Let's say they are present there and they collaborate with each other. Okay, so uh, Git is a distributed version control system. Okay, that's a version control system. Version control system means, let's say you list something called sugar, coffee, and tea. I'll buy some sugar, I'll buy some coffee and some tea, let's say. Then you will add a newer version to that. No, I will also buy some milk or something like that. I will add milk too. So that's a newer version. Let's say you deployed an application in Python, let's say. Okay, there is an module which keeps the code slow, or uh, and you applied some code and applied some techniques to it, or your team applies some techniques to it, so that the module becomes not the module, the application becomes faster. Okay, you remove the module, or you let's say improve the module, or let's say you remove some redundant code, and you make that application faster, or your team as a whole make that application faster. So that's the version 2. Okay, the loading time is reduced. Let's say the loading time was on it is different on different machines. Let's say on Windows it was taking about 10 seconds. Now it's taking about 5 seconds. Okay, so some loading time is reduced. Okay, so that's some versions are there. Versions, you might have known about versions. Okay, so you can relate to Windows 8, Windows 10, Windows 11. Okay, what has changed and what not. Some UI has changed, some internal implementations has changed, and something. You might have heard about the Windows 7 search bar, and now the Windows XP search bar, and now the Windows 11 search bar, and how it works differently, and something like that. Okay, if you take example of Linux, Linux was not gaming friendly then. Okay, you can play games on that, but now you can also play games. So something has changed. Okay, something has changed, and the release is called the different version, and Git manages all of the versions. Let's say you want to roll back to older version, some newer version have some let's say it breaking the application, or it's breaking the deployment. So you want to it's breaking the whole application and failing all tests. Deployment is the uh, uh, deployment. It's not deployment. It's like deployment. Yeah, deployment. You can consider it a deployment too. Okay, so it's breaking the deployments or something. Okay, and it's making the production slow, and something like that. So you roll back to older versions and you work on the newer versions as a team. So Git allows to do that. Okay. The simple example was the sugar, coffee, and tea. Okay, where you add milk, and you can let's say you can apply to you can apply to not you can apply to text files too. Don't think that it is only applicable to .py files or .cpp files, C++, C, or any languages. Don't think like that. It can apply to any files. Okay, and it rollbacks to the previous version, like it's a time machine. In one word, it's a time machine. Okay, so it keeps tracks of every changes in of all files and folders. Okay, so it's a distributed version control system. Uh, Apologies that I don't have any pictures to show that. And you can think of distributed means, let's say if you know GitHub, then you are forking someone's repository. Okay, you have copy of someone's, and you are then cloning that repository in that particular machine of yours. And many developers are doing that. That's something called distributed version control. Okay, because in GitHub you can manage that fork. Okay, and you can if and every developer can manage that forks. And main fork is if the main repository is failed, then you can also you have the fork of it. Okay, so and centralized is something that you don't have the fork. Okay, just have your own copy of that inside of your own machine, or let's say anything that you are working on. It may be workspace or it may be server, anything. And local means local means it's locally available, not to all websites. And GitHub is the bigger picture of Git. Okay, uh, that I have said earlier, that GitHub is the bigger picture of Git, where software developers collaborate each other. This thing is not software developers. Anyone can collaborate with each other. Maybe that he's a docs writer. Maybe let's say he's writing documentation and all. He can collaborate with each other. Okay, he can be any. Okay, so open. You might have heard about open source. They can be anyone. Okay, it's not mandatory that he or she is a software developer and he will do that. No. And some folks say that I was also thinking that uh, Git Git and GitHub as made for each other. No, GitHub can be uh, compatible with Bitkeeper, but you have to manage something. You have to configure something. That's not manage. You have to configure something, and or it can be configured with Mercurial too. Mercurial, if you know, Bitkeeper and Mercurial are like Git. Okay, I think uh, Bitbucket. Yeah, Bitbucket is paid. I think so. GitHub is also paid, but I think Bitbucket is something like that. I am not sure about it. So you can post on Bitbucket using Git too. Yeah, okay. Bitbucket is another tool like GitHub, similar tool. Okay, uh, and GitLab is also another one, and it's one type of repo hosting software. Sorry, service. Repo means repository, which means directories and all where files and folders are there, and you can post that on GitHub. Okay, so that's it for Git and GitHub. Okay, so let's now see GitHub Actions. So earlier, as I mentioned that GitHub Actions is a continuous integration and continuous delivery platform. Okay, and you know that continuous integration means this thing about it. Let's see, he's a developer. He commits the code and triggers some GitHub actions. Let's say he commits the code. Okay, I save the file and I push to GitHub. Let's say, and then when I push that, some event is being triggered. Okay, that the pull request is made. Okay, on the main branch, let's say, and it triggers some GitHub actions. It triggers the workflow. Okay, then some CI/CD workflow is triggered, and it performs its job. And let's say it performs the testing job, and he does these things, and he does this. Sorry, he does these things, and if it's a failure, then he starts again. He commits again, and he reports that all the things to that. Also, GitHub Actions has some logs where you can see whether it's a success or it's a failure. Okay, and it will see that what's remaining now. Yeah, so GitHub some test. Okay, so let's move to now. You can create workflows that builds test every pull request to a repository or deploy more pull request to production. Okay, it can test every pull request. Okay, when a commit is made, you uh, let's say he's a developer and I'm now the owner of the repository. He's he's he committed some code and he worked some on some feature and he's um, requesting to please merge that pull request. I don't know whether that code is correct or not. Okay, so GitHub Actions check that thing. Okay, whether the code is correct, or if it's correct, it can also make a comment that it's correct and notifies the developer that it's a failure. You can work on the feature again. If it's a success, then I will deploy that. Okay, I will deploy that, and it will be on Nimbella or something. It's Nimbella. It's on now because I take this picture from Nimbella. So now GitHub Actions can go smoother than with others. It can also uh, it's not only I think it's not only defined to GitHub. I think so. It can work with anything. Okay, I think so. It can work with GitLab too. So, Adya, do you have any idea about GitLab? It can work with GitLab, GitHub Actions. Sorry. Oh, no, no. Lots of participants left. Okay, so Adya, do you have any idea? Okay, so I am not sure about that. I think so. Okay, so let me. I think so. You can also Google that stuff. I think so that it works on GitLab or something like that. But it requires some configurations and uh, so workflow file also contains some shell commands. Shell commands, if you don't know, shell commands are like bash commands or Linux commands. If you say echo hello world, it prints what hello world. So it's something like that. And shell commands are like that. YAML is something a data serialization language which you will see on later on. And why ML is not used? Why only ML is used? And why not JSON and XML? Because they are also data serialization language. Because they are easy to use and have a stricter syntax over others. Okay, so therefore YAML is used. If you know Python, it has a stricter syntax. Okay, so indentation and whole all stuff you can see that. Then we have why GitHub Actions? Why not other? Why GitHub Actions? Okay, it automates your workflows. Let's say in the traditional methods, in classical waterfall model, you have each team for testing and testing. Let's say IT team for testing and operation team for deployment and dev team for that developing and stuff. So it removes some uh, it it automates the workflows. Okay, uh, human has some errors and human can make some mistakes. So it reduces that. Also, it's continuous integration and deployment. You can set up continuous integration and deployment workflows, automatically test and deploy your code. It's extensible. It has wide range of marketplace. People, uh, if I can share with you this thing. Yeah. So let's see. Sharing. Wait for something. Okay, so let me share this. Okay, share this one. Yeah, so you can see GitHub Marketplace. Okay, Marketplace. You can see here. It has some actions related tools which can it has some workflows like that. Okay, let's say set up .NET Core SDK. You don't have to set up it on your own by giving some commands. Let's say we gave some commands .NET build my project. You don't have to give that. It's defined on that. Okay, and there is something called actions checkout version 3 which checks out your code. Okay, you don't have to do that. Okay, it does automatically. And let's say I have done something like here. You can see GitHub action add PR comment. Okay, so where it adds some comments that whether the application, whether it is successful or whether it fails. You can also it has some code defined over here. This is called something YAML, and it has some messages over here. You can add more code to this, and it can deploy. You can run this. Okay, so it has some test code here. You can run this and it will run. And this has some marketplace. You can check that out. Okay, what is that? Okay, there's some marketplace. It's for Python. Sorry, for Go. It's that for Python. It will be there. Python. Let's say there some set of Python where it is. You can see. This thing sets up the Python. You don't have to do that. Okay. So, this is a repository. What is this? This is a repository. You can see here. It has some TypeScript and JavaScript written here. Okay, many of the actions files are written in TypeScript and JavaScript. You can see many of the TypeScript, not JavaScript. JavaScript is 1.9%. The TypeScript is 96.8%. And let me now start this one. Sorry. Okay, so so it's extensible. It's extensible and it has a community also. GitHub Actions has a large community of users who can contribute and share their workflows and actions. If you have any doubts or if you have any questions, you can post in our communities. And integration of GitHub. Okay, you know that. Actions is built into GitHub platform and it makes easier to integrate and the whole stuff. If you are having some doubts, you can post that in chat, and me and Adya will definitely solve that. Okay. So these are some examples. Okay. Of say workflow file. Okay. There is a name. Hello world. Okay. Uh, if I'll show you this thing, I'll show you. I'll show you. I have done some repositories. It's from the first this thing. Okay. This is onboarding. Don't worry about that. This is uh, just a technical onboarding that is compulsory for all MLS, all Microsoft students, ambassadors to complete this. And I have also completed this. So you can see actions here. Okay, it has something called this file. Let's say you can deploy. Sorry, sorry. You workflow file. Okay. Uh, and it show up profile here. You can see name Azure Static Web Apps CI/CD. Azure Static Web Apps CI/CD. Okay, this is the name. And okay, so on is something there. You can see now on this thing. On push means if some code is pushed now, if on push, if some code is pushed now, then it will perform these jobs. The jobs are like, let's say, jobs are like what to do after this event is triggered. Okay, jobs is something called my job. It runs on Ubuntu latest. Okay, Ubuntu latest is the common one because everyone uses it. And Ubuntu latest, there is something called Windows latest, which is Windows 11, I think. Yeah, it's Windows 11. And Ubuntu latest means it's Ubuntu 22.04. That is the Ubuntu latest, and it runs on that server. And by default, I think it has a 7 GB RAM associated to it. You can host on a larger server too, and you have to write it here, like what you have to do, how much storage you require, how much memory you require. So you can do that. And storage is I think 14 GB or something like that. And steps, it runs some steps. Okay, let's say it is the name of the step, and it contains of shell commands as I have mentioned. And the name of the step here is my step, and it runs echo hello world on Ubuntu latest. It brings out hello world. It's a hello world.yaml file. And if you ever started GitHub Actions, you might have came across this thing. Okay, this is the first code that you have. This is the first code that you have might have written if you have ever followed GitHub Actions documentation. Okay, so it has a name, GitHub Actions demo, like we have seen in Azure Static Webs. Okay, the name and run name. You can, while running, it shows like that github.actor. Actor means here is the username. It's testing out GitHub Actions. On push, okay. Here it is a square brackets. You can provide that if you are doing something multiple things, you can do that push comma fork or something like that. If on pushing a new code, okay, this is the triggered point. Okay, if some new code is pushed, then these things are done. Okay, so jobs is now explore GitHub Actions, run on Ubuntu latest. It runs some this echo command. Runs some this echo commands and all that stuff. Okay, so GitHub.event name triggered by the event name is that runner. Runner is something. This is the runner. Ubuntu latest is the runner. Okay, and the name of your branch is GitHub.ref. Ref is the might be the name of the branch, and GitHub repository is the your own repository, and name checkout repository code. Okay, so you just action/checkout version 3. This is something that it's predefined, and you can use that. Okay, the it is maintained by actions, and it is the repository name is checkout, and it's version 3. So it checks out the code, then it runs the echo command again. The GitHub repository has cloned to the runner. Okay, again runner is the this thing, Ubuntu latest where it runs on this whole thing. Okay, and one more thing, YAML is not stored on memory. Okay, you can think that these are all commands. Okay, and you can see run echo. The workflow is now ready to test your code on runner. The name is list some files in repository. Run This is the pipeline that I was talking about. The sorry, on the pipeline means something called, in the Linux. Okay, you might have saw this symbol, pipeline symbol. List ls GitHub workspace. Okay, GitHub workspace means in the folder, how many contents are there, how many files, how many folders are there. You can list that stuff. Okay. Then it's run echo. The job status is job status, and job status means if it's uh, failed, it can return some status code here. If it's a success, then it can return some status code here also too. So YAML now YAML is a data serialization language. Data serialization language means some object is converted to streams of bytes, or which can be stored in the files, or which can be stored in a database, or which can be stored in memory too. And you can I forgot, yeah, HTTPS online ML tools, you can find that where you can convert to JSON or XML like that. It's not a markup language. Previously, its full form are yet another markup language. Means, markup languages, it represents some documents and stuff, but it's not built for that. It's built for representing data, which is a data serialization language. Other data serialization languages are JSON and XML. And now the full form of YAML is YAML and markup language. It's a recursive full form like GNU. Okay, GNU, not Unix like that. It's a recursive full form. And data serialization means object to stream of bytes like this. And data deserialization means the opposite of that. You can think of serialization as something stringify. If you have ever worked on JSON, you can think of stringify. Stringify is something called as serialization. If you can relate to it, and parse is something called deserialization. Okay. Now hands-on demo. Let me tell you some YAML code here. Okay. You can wait for a second. That is- So you can see here that these are some YAML files. Okay. These are some key value pairs. Okay. These are only textual representation, and I have told you earlier that these are not stored in memory. Like it's not valid. This second sentence is not valid in JSON. Okay, but it's valid in ML. Okay, apple is of color red. Represent anything. Key value pairs you might have known. And this thing, okay, this thing is something known as it separates a document. This is one document. This is another. This is another, and this is another. And this dot 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 means it's finished here. Okay, so this some separate documents. And lists, if you have ever programmed before in any languages, you might have known about lists. Okay, so these are some lists. Okay, this is a hyphen and a apple or mango or something like that. Cities. Okay, so it separates another document, and it's something called block style. Okay, it's represented as this. Okay, and it has some New Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai cities in India. And can see here. It's similar to this. It is something called the flow style, and this is something called block style, because there are blocks there. Yeah, there are blocks. Okay, so similar to JSON, you can do this too also. Okay, you can do this too. Okay, so and you can notice something. Just this thing. Uh, if it is JSON, you can do this like this in a string, but here it's not required for that. Okay, it's not required. So you can't um, require. We are not required to do this in string in double quotes, and This is something called keys, and these are the values. And this is something called single line comment. There are no multi-line comments here. And let's focus on uh, some data types here. Okay, so these are some data types. Okay, so uh, these are strings in double quotes. In single quotes, you can also define a string too. Okay, so and you can write this thing. Okay, you can do this thing also. Okay, by writing in multi-line, you can this thing. Okay, this gives us error because it has no keys here. Okay, I have key here, bio, but I don't have any key here. Okay, to represent this thing, you can do this. Okay, you can do something called this pipeline thing here. Okay, so uh, that you have saw earlier that something is written echo here and comment, because of that it gives some error. Okay, so and this thing you can this is something greater than symbol, and you can write it as a single line using a multi-line statement, a multi-line thing. And this is a string. Okay, so if you have ever uh, programmed in Java before, you might have declared a string. So string and string name equal to something in double quotes. So in YAML you have to do this. Okay, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, str, then this thing. Okay, so number is this, marks are this. Okay, in like in JavaScript, you represent integers and floats in as number, but in YAML you can't represent this as a whole. Okay, you can't. Okay, I have said can't. Okay, so you can represent this as a whole. Sorry, in as a number. This is a float and this is a integer. Don't think that this is JavaScript. Okay, and Boolean value. Okay, you can represent as exclamation mark, exclamation bold, and these are some values here. And this is these are int. Okay, this is something octal, binary, hexadecimal, and you can represent like this 0b0 o. I have missed that. Okay, and 0x and something this is positive, and you can also represent exponential number too. This is floating type numbers. Infinity, minus infinity, not a number. Null, this is a null. Okay, and these are the timestamps. Also in advanced data types, you have some sequences and all that thing. Okay, this is not required much. Okay, as we are running out of time, so I don't have enough time to explain this. Let's see some hands-on demo. Okay, so let me open Chrome. Yeah, this one is, yeah. Okay, so as you can see here, okay, so let me do a GitHub a repository. Yeah, so GitHub Actions and let's say create a repository. Okay, it was created, and you can see port spaces. Create a port spaces on main. If you don't know port spaces, check that out. You can also check Git port also. It's available on GitHub. It build, yeah, it will. Let's build a folder here. .github. It's hidden. Okay. Let's work then under that workflows. Then under that we can write our workflow file, hello world.yaml, and we can do that like this. From this we can do this. Copying this whole thing, okay, that I have used before. Compose box. Okay, so uh, let me do one thing before it expires. Let me do, wait for a second.
By the way, Toshik, what do you think about quizzes? I am eagerly waiting for those.
Okay, quizzes. I think that mm, can you see this screen here? Okay, so it says something like mm, it says something like 30 April 5 p.m. to 6:15 p.m. But it's still saying upcoming here. I can understand. I can understand that. I can
Let's
understand
try
this.
clicking on that start quiz button.
Okay, I will try that. Let me change the time. Something as 30. If you guys have any questions, you can post that. Okay. So please fix all other this will be 20 minutes long. Okay. 45 plus. Okay. So okay. So uh, this is on YAML linter where you can check whether it's a valid YAML or not. Sorry, it's not valid. Just sorry, line 2. Okay, this works. No, this doesn't work. Oh, no.
I think jobs would be aligned to on.
Okay, Jobs, yes, jobs is aligned to on, and this thing is aligned. No, 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 something is wrong. No,
Steps would
nothing
be
like
aligned to runs, and there would be one tab
this.
space between runs. And same with steps. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
presenting. Is the okay. And another file here, you can see the documentation docs, GitHub Actions docs. This is just a demo. You can see that. Like, let's copy this file here and this demo. The demo. And here is another one which adds some PR comment. Okay, you can check this on marketplace. Add some PR comment. I'm just copy pasting this one. And this thing is just request YAML and it are get YAML not those get those not get this change again. Let's see. Yeah, it's from okay, you can see here. You can click on the tabs and you can see here it's running. Will be running sometimes. Some are down, other some are closed. Which one? Hello world. Hello world.ml. It's down, and all the things are down. Now it's now there is no comments here because we have not opened any pull request. Let me open a pull request now. Okay, so check out the since and all right. A simple program here. Most not no file. No one. No. Uh, and say git add and git commit the word and then git use origin access to when it's down now. Yeah, it's my the pull request is my it's down now. Create pull request is has one addition is now the two pull requests has passed. Now confirm merge.
I think
The pull
we
request
need
has been
to.
merged. Sorry. Yeah, it's running now. Okay. Sorry.
I just wanted to see if we can see that comment on our pull request or not.
Okay. So it's added. You can see one closed here. The pull request started by the GitHub Actions bot. Okay, hello ma'am. You can specify any messages. You can
Yeah, we
do that
got that
on any
comment.
messages and all that. So if you guys have any questions, that's it. If you guys have any questions, you can post that, okay, or we can start the quiz now. Think that do you have any questions, guys? You can post it. Let's wait for some time.
I think in the meantime we can start the quiz, and if anybody
Okay,
wants
so
to ask any question, we can handle it
you
later.
can join now the quiz. Yeah, and it's been and it's here. Okay, okay, copy this. Mm, the link is the comment. Sorry, in the chats. You can check that and start quiz. Start quiz. Yes, yes. And start quiz now. Also, there is the link here. Is the link now? Okay, please check that. Quiz about
Can
the
you please provide quiz code?
quiz code is here. I'm providing. Now, guys, you can join. You can join now. Participants. Uh, is the quiz available or not? It's giving any errors. Just check that. Please join. Okay, Fernando is in. Fernando is in, and there are people here. Some people left. It's okay. You can join. Alexis, you can join. Geoffrey, you can join. Harshit, you can join. Umrao Beast, you can join. Fernando, you can join. Rahul, you can join. Everyone can join. Okay, Harshit is in. Nice. You can join on mobile too. You can join on any device. You can join in any browser. Please join. Geoffrey is in. Omkar is in. Now, Alexis, you are not here. You are not here. Rahul, you are not here. Umrao, should we start or something? Are there?
Yeah, I think we should
Because
start.
okay, so the first question here is yeah. So which of the following is not a deployment tool? Docker, AWS, Jira, or Azure apps? Harshit is in. Okay, Jira, two participants. Okay, that's right. Shivangi is in. Okay, thanks. How integer is represented in ML? Int, function, the number, int, or explanation mark int. Okay, so one participant has answered. Be quick, be quick. What are workflows? Actions, events like PRs, branches, a repository data flow diagram, something that is being triggered by events. Okay, so right. Uh, Next question is Git is a dash version control system, local, central, distributed, both 1 and 2. Jepro is fast. Fernando. Sorry. Distributed, it's distributed. Jepro is rocking. Okay. What are GitHub Actions? A coding platform, a CI/CD platform, SRS, same as GitHub. It's easier. It's much easier. Okay. Thanks. Okay. Great. So Jepro is the winner. Okay. You can see Jepro is the winner and Fernando go to leaderboard. Jepro is the winner, then Fernando, then Smita. And you guys are also doing great. Thank you for that. Okay. Thank you thank you all for attending. And let me
Can
see
we take a
if in
quick screenshot of our, if
uh,
anybody can open their cameras?
okay. There are no questions. If you enjoyed this,
I
you
think
can share this too. You all are requested to share this on
they'll go
socials.
and explore more.
Yeah, it's just an introduction. You can explore more on. You can see documentation like that I was talking about the DevOps. Let me see DevOps. Sorry, DevOps. GitHub. You can see here. This is a nice video. It's opening. This is a nice video. See this. Okay. Dev team, QA team, sec team, ops team. You can see this.
I think all are joining from mobile, so that's why they
Okay.
are not opening there.
Okay. Together mode. Geoffrey is in. Okay. Nice. More participants. Someone else. Or we can take the screenshot now because they are not comfortable, I think.
Yeah, I also think.
Okay, so the screenshot is done. Thank you for participating. And uh,
Thank you
we'll
everyone
be
for
connect
joining us.
we'll be connected on socials and on the WhatsApp that I have shared and all. Thank you for that.
Great job, Tausik. Nice to meet you.
Hello. Sorry. Sorry.
True. Great. Also, Jeffrey Logovi
Okay, Fernando. Nice.
and Adia Singh.
Thank you for participating, Fernando.
Likewise, thank you for inviting me.
Okay.